boardroom of the Roxanne Administration Building. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Salvador Torres, present.
Bertha Rodan, present.
Hector Lopez, present.
Lori Garza, present.
Oscar Lopez, President. I will also the President of Ms. Eva Orona and Mr. Richard Gonzalez. Next item on the agenda is prayer. Would you please bow your head for a moment of silence? Remember your past ones that have gone by, the ones that are sick now, and of all the veterans that have gone before us, and also for the veterans that are present, still alive. Amen. Next item on the agenda is the pledge of allegiance. Conway.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the superintendent's celebration service, number 4.
Good evening, community, staff, and trustees. This evening we have some celebrations that we want to recognize our band, volleyball team, as well as cross-country team, and of course our Proud Juror Picker Award. At this point, I'd like to have Mr. Cabrera come on up, please.
Mic test. Okay, good evening. I'm Mr. Miguel Cabrera. Mr. C is waiting for some students to be picked up at the band hall. Mr. Officer has the flu, Mr. Gonzalez as well, Ms. Martinez is at an appointment. So we're all, feeling it after marching season. But I do want to take a brief moment to recognize our marching band and their accomplishments throughout the fall. On October 5th, we took the band to the Greater Portland Marching Band Festival. They did get third place in Class 4A, and the drumline got Best Percussion out of Class 4A. On Saturday, October 19th, the marching band went to the UIL Region Marching Contest and got a first division from all 3 judges. Mr. C and I were chatting before we got here, and this senior class of 2020, right? They're the first senior class since 2010 to have all 4 years getting a first division in marching, so we are very grateful. And also on Friday, November 1st, which was homecoming day, we left the band hall at 6 a.m. To San Antonio to go march at the Alamo Dome at the BOA Super Regionals there in San Antonio, Texas. They competed in Class 1A, and out of all the bands in Texas, in that category, we did get first out of all of them. There were a couple of out-of-state bands that had just a little bit, but we're very, very proud of our students. I'd like to recognize our student leaders that are here on our behalf. And like I said, we're very grateful for your support. We know that from Dr. Moreno, the board and our administrators, we know that they make a lot happen. So once again, thank you very much. Rishi?
Very exciting, guys. Very exciting. We met with our program coordinator for next year, so we are already in the workings. Next year is an advancing year for us, so hopefully next time we can be area finalists. So looking forward to that.
Yes. So this time, if we could have all of our student leaders come on up and take the trustees' hands, and then we'll take a picture.
Cheers. So I can see you. Yeah.
Can you see everyone above?
Okay. Thank you, sir. Oh, okay, thank you, thank you.
Okay, trustees, at this point, we will be recognizing our volleyball team. And I'd like to have Coach Garcia come on up. I don't know if Coach Williams is here.
Thank you guys, community and board trustees. We're really proud of this group of young ladies. Coach Martinez, our head volleyball coach, is going to introduce her team, state qualifiers in the playoffs for the first time in a while. I'm really proud of her.
Thank you guys for recognizing such a great group of girls. It has been an honor and a blessing to be here this season with these girls. We've broken a couple of records this year. The first one was we won our first district opener here in Robstown, which hasn't happened in a while. I don't have the exact numbers. Mr. Gillespie is working on getting me all of those numbers, as well as the most district wins and overall record wins. We finished our season 17-21, and our district wins were 8-6 was our record. So that's a big accomplishment for this group of girls, and I couldn't be more proud of them. We're going to start by recognizing Marissa Moreno, Kayla Mesa, Alexi Verial, Daniela Ramos, Desiree Gonzalez, Gabriela Ramos, Mia Medina, Alanis Gonzalez, Katie Trammell, Chloe Montes, Sarah Gallegos, Rebecca Sanchez, Kiera Hawkins, Abigail Garza, Eileen Rubio, Ananda Lopez, Araceli Morales, our manager Elias Olmeda, Marisol Guerrero, and Leslie Ramirez. I would like to thank all of our parents that have helped and supported us the whole way with team dinners. These girls do a lot. They go from cheer to volleyball, cross country. One of our girls did all three at one time, cross country, cheer, and volleyball. And now they're off to basketball and preparing for powerlifting and for softball. So as well as being great students in the classroom. So these girls deserve so much. They work day and night, and they believe in being all in. And all in, they gave 100% day in and day out. And I couldn't have asked for a better group of girls than these. I'm super happy and proud of them.
All right, Coach Garcia, at this point, we will also be recognizing our cross-country team.
Okay, Coach Adolfo Gonzalez is gonna recognize our boys cross-country, their district and regional results. Coach Gonzalez.
Good evening, board, administration, teachers, public. We have the boys going to regionals this year. We're missing the girls this year. It was hard for us. We had a little injury with our girls. One of our top girls ended up not finishing. We still ended up in fourth place, losing by 1 point to Ingleside and to Simpson. They got 93, and we got 94, with one of our top runners. So, it was devastating for everybody, but we'll be back next year. We have all the girls coming back. And then in the boys, we have all the boys coming back. And this year, from last year, they ended up in third last year. This year, they improved to second place. And hopefully next year, working hard in the summer, we're gonna be getting, trying to get that district title this coming year. So we get all the boys back. We have a young team. We have Chris Solis, he's a sophomore. Joel Garza, junior. Joseph Salinas, junior. Justin Fernandez was individuals. He got third place overall, making it to regionals as an individual as well. He's a junior, Justin Fernandez. Not in attendance is freshman Devin Munguia, Joe Galvan, freshman, Robert Rodriguez, junior, Michael Luna, a sophomore, Austin Lopez, sophomore. I think they're playing basketball, so that's why they're not here. So they're in practice. So I want to congratulate these guys for coming and for a good season this season. Next year we're gonna do better. All right, thank you guys. Thank you.
It wasn't bad. Be careful. Stay warm.
Congratulations on your kids. Thank you.
All right, this time I'd like to bring up Kelsey for Proud Year Picker.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Dr. Moreno. As usual, we always celebrate the accomplishments of our amazing students, but we'd also love to celebrate the accomplishments of our employees as well. So the Proud Year Picker Award is something special that employees are nominated by their peers. They can be nominated by students. They can also be nominated by members of the community or their supervisors. This one tonight was nominated by a student, so these always are extra special to us because it's the students who are saying, are the ones attesting to how amazing some of our employees are. So as usual, I'll go ahead and read with you what was shared with me and the nomination committee. I am nominating this person for multiple reasons where he has gone over what is needed of him.
One example is that he decided to become the class of 2021 sponsor, even though he has never done it before, but decided to do so because he knew that our class needed a sponsor so that we can be able to start helping out the school and maintaining our class responsibilities. A second example is that he gives much of his time and effort to make sure his class understands what he's teaching in a fun and productive way that keeps me and all students into what he is teaching. And even when you're struggling, he's willing to break it down to the point so that you comprehend the subject and make sure you don't ever fall behind. The final reason is that he gives a lot of time to the school, teachers, and most importantly, to us students. He gives in ways other than knowledge, but with his time, and lessons in life that you will need to be productive citizens. He tells us that anything we aspire to do can be possible if we just put in the effort. These are the reasons that I'm nominating Mr. Robert Silguero. Congratulations.
Every word that was said is so true about this.
Yes,
That's right, it was really moving.
Next item on the agenda is number 5, public participation as proposed to be no movement. Nobody? Okay, thank you. We go to number 6, information items.
Trustees, we'll go ahead and move into our information items. If you notice on letter A, board calendar updates, I'm going to implement a new process, trustees, but it'll be, right now what you have in November, December, January. These are just updates for you to be aware of, but for the next board meeting, we're just going to go to the green. That way you'll always know any calendar updates is always going to be on the green sheet. Okay, and it'll stand out a little bit more in your packets. All right. Within that, let me see up here, what, November, again, make sure you're aware of course, our meeting tonight, 18th and 19th, I'll talk about a little bit more, and then we have our Thanksgiving break starting on the 25th. Okay. Other days to be aware of, again, if you'll look at letter B, American Education Week Open House is November 18th through the 22nd. We have Thanksgiving break, November 25th through the 29th. Christmas break, December 23rd through January the 3rd. Governance camp on February the 26th through the 29th. And that's, I think, a new term that they're using, Eva, governance camp. That one is in Galveston. And then we have the letter F, 86 Texas legislative session, legislative update to the education code for the Board of Trustees training. That's January the 23rd. And any questions on the dates, trustees?
I have on this January 23rd, is that the one where are we hosting one?
We're actually hosting is this the one from Region 2? The last one, we're actually gonna host here as far as legislative updates.
So we can come to that one, right?
Yes, definitely.
Is it, do you know the time? I'm just curious.
6:30?
Okay.
All right. Now, Richard, do I have this next one? Couple emails that I sent you? This one, trustees, that you'll see here on letter G, the FFA, and then I put band trailer information. We just, here's something we definitely want to celebrate. Our ACT program is growing. And I invite you anytime that, if you want to make some time or whenever you're available, to come out to the show barn. We definitely have a lot more hogs this year. And part of that, because we have more hogs, guess what? It requires some more equipment. We can no longer put our hogs on a truck and think 1 or 2 cages is enough. And so through our funds right now, which we use local, but as well as we will be using CTE, were able to purchase this trailer for our kids. And I just want to show you a quick little glimpse of it.
Yes, just go ahead and switch, please.
And then what you'll notice on the next one, trustees, the next one that says band trailer, we have to really consider looking at that. I think if we continue to have that discussion in the spring, leading into the summer, that way we can go ahead and have an opportunity to have it wrapped and to represent our school district proudly with our band program. Now this is our new addition to our family. And you'll see all the little ones. I don't know, go and click, see which one's next. Nope, go backwards. You see some of our little, nope, the middle one. Our little friends in there. So here's what happens. If you use a traditional trailer, they're not segmented in that way. So what you have is a bunch of hogs in there, and it's not safe for them. It's not conducive. And this one's customized for hogs. You notice the pins are definitely a lot smaller, and they got more cells for them. So that, and actually they got to use it for the first time today. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it's exciting to see that, but that's why, because our program is growing. We have consistency of our teacher, and definitely trustees, I just want to put that bug in your ear already. We're going to need another teacher, and that's a good thing, because that means that we're having some stability in our program and it's growing. So if you go, Richard, on one of the other slides, the other one. That when you go out to the show barn, which you'll notice, those are all the pins that are already inside. Those have been out, if I guesstimate, maybe about a month and a half, Leroy, roughly. They're already set up, but that's when they first came in to be loaded. So right now we have, I believe, 3 heifers. One of them is actually pregnant. And then you'll notice all the hogs there. I mean, it's really starting to come together. We're really excited about this. Okay.
I would like to go see it, Brian.
Sure.
Do I have to come to you?
Yeah, just give me a call. No.
Is that pin inside the one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's how it just came grouped, and then of course they spread them out.
Holes inside the pin?
I really couldn't tell you the number. We have quite a few though. It wraps around the whole big show barn area, the show area.
So do we have the stalls installed already in the show barn?
That's what those are.
So that's in the red.
No, the red ones are in the barn itself. So those are all the stalls or the pins inside. Now, like I said, that's already been in, but I wanted to show you on the trailer as well. All right. And at a future meeting, what I'll do is I'll bring some pictures and some cost estimates of the band trailers that we're looking at right now for our band program as well. Just so you know, on average, we have to rent 2 rentals to be able to put in all of our equipment. It's definitely, I mean, at the rate that our band is continuing to grow, and you see the accomplishments, we got to get out there and be proud of what we have to showcase our kids. All right, and our next item is we have Ms. Kay coming on up to provide us a special education presentation, which she will review our data points as far as where we are right now, as well as our plan of action to address some of these areas. Trustees, in this particular piece, remember, when we look at our overall data point, we look at all of our kids are within the same percentages, okay? So we're looking at overall. But what we're doing today is we're actually taking out our students who are identified as having some type of special need, and that way you'll see just their part of the data. But remember, all that ends up blending in to the overall big picture of it. So, Ms. Kay?
Good evening. Making sure this is on. Good evening, Mr. Lopez, Board President, Dr. Moreno, and Board of Trustees. Tonight I'm going to talk to you. Did everybody get a copy? Okay. Tonight I'm going to talk to you about how our students that receive special education did performance on their STAR and EOC tests. And on this first slide, I got this right. On this first slide is how they performed in accountability in all subjects and all grades. And if you look here in the approaches area from 2018 to 2019, we gained by 9%. And then at the meets level, they went from 16% to 23%, and we gained by 7%. And at the master's level, we gained by 6%. Here, this is San Pedro reading and math. The approaches level from 18 to 19, we had a deficit of 14%. And if you see in parentheses, I put 7 and then 3. That's because they have very few students that receive special education services. And then at the meets and masters, they were at a deficit of 0%. So like I said, they have very few students that they serve. And then again, at 3rd grade, at the approaches level, they were at a deficit of 17%. So we recognize that they have areas that they need, that we're focusing on.
And again, assuming nothing, trustees, that 7 does represent 7 kids, and then the 3 represents three students.
I'm curious as to if we have those numbers versus the second slide.
I'm sorry?
The second slide, where you have approaches for 2018 and 19, you just have 30%, 39%. The second one,
Yes. Oh, yes.
Do we have numbers on this one? Because in my opinion, it could be that our numbers are just very low for special ed.
Right.
Do you know where I'm coming from? Like, how many kids do we test in a day?
Overall?
No, I would like to see the numbers.
Okay.
Sure. And some of these, of course, are gonna layer upon one another, because it may be the same child is, of course, math, reading, and writing, and science themselves.
Okay, Lot Speech. So they also, at the approaches level from reading 2018 to 2019, they had a significant growth up to 50%. They also have very small numbers. In 2018, they had 1 student, and then they went up to 4 students. They did not have any students at the meets and masters level in reading. And then in 3rd grade, they had 1 student that got 100% in math, and then in math, they got a 50%. Actually, they went down to 50%, and they had 4 students, so they were at a deficit of 50%. So their numbers are very small. Again, they don't have very many students that they serve at Lots Beach. Now, at Robert Driscoll, at the approaches level, they missed it by 2%. Now, keep in mind, that may be 1 or 2 students. And then at the meets, they were at 5% where they increased, and then at the masters, they also increased 5%. And then at the math 2018 and 19, they were up by 7%, and at the meets and masters, they were down by 2%. And again, that could be just a matter of 1 or 2 students that missed the mark there, okay? Ortiz, 4th grade reading and math. So they missed the mark by 5% at approaches. However, they made gains at the meets and masters by 2% and 4%. In math, they hit the mark by 19% at their approaches, but they showed gains at 7% in meets and masters. And writing, they showed great gains by 16% at the approaches, and at the meets, they also showed gains at the meets. And at the masters, they only missed it by 1% there. Probably just 1 student. Okay, 5th grade, they showed great gains, 30% at the approaches level, great gains 17% at meets and masters, great gains also in math, great gains also in science. So they're doing really good there. Okay, SEAL. Now this is an area that, they were struggling, and this is kind of part of the plan that I'm going to be visiting with you about. So this is areas that we're targeting, and I meet with Maribel on a regular basis. So this is, like I said, part of our plan. Okay, SEAL 7th grade, reading, math, and writing. Areas that we see there are some deficits in reading again. Math, they've done well in math, and then of course writing, goes with the reading component. And the approaches, they were at negative 11%, deficit in the meets also. And then master's level, if you look at the masters, they had they were increased to a 14%, so that's positive. Now, 8th grade, ELA and math, they did very well across the board, approaches, meets, and masters. And then if you look at math, the approaches, they were up by 35%, and then meets and masters, they did really well. Again, in science and social studies, they showed gains in every area, approaches, meets, and masters. Social studies, again, approaches, meets, and masters, they showed gains. So the Robstown Early College High School, English 1 and 2, the approaches and meets, they showed gains. We didn't show anything to masters. I know that's something that they're definitely working towards. English 2, approaches and meets, they showed gains there. Again, in masters, they're not quite there yet, but definitely working towards that. Okay, our Algebra 1, Biology, and U.S. History. Algebra 1 showed gains in approaches, meets, and masters. Biology, same thing, showed gains in all areas. U.S. History showed gains in the approaches, didn't make it there at the meets, and they showed a deficit at the masters. So what I did here I did a general education comparison to special education, and just so that you would kind of know where we're at, but I did it from top to bottom. General ed to special ed. At the approaches level for general ed, there were 63%, and special ed was 30%. At the meets, for general ed, they were 31%, and meets was 16% for special ed. And then masters was 10% to 5%. Let's see, am I doing this right?
In 2018.
Yes, okay. And then 63% to 39%. And then so on and so forth. And so, I guess my point being, I just want to make sure I was reading this slide because I put this in kind of last minute. In other words, when you compare the gen ed to the special ed population, special ed still showed growth, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying, Ms. Garza. I mean, you wanted to know what the overall number, the special ed numbers were. And when you compare, even though our numbers were smaller, we still had growth when you compare it to the general ed numbers. Okay? Does that make sense?
It does. Do you have, I just have a quick question. Do you have a total of students that we service that you can provide for us?
We have a total of about 300 special ed kids that we service, and that's in anywhere from like speech only kids to students with other disabilities, but that's total. Maybe like 297. It changes from 297 to about 300 because some of the kids, they withdraw and then they come back, you know. Approximately 300. And, you know, this is part of our plan to offer support and bring change within our programs. In our life skills classrooms, one of the really one of the things that we're doing that's, I think, very impressive is we have a reverse inclusion in collaboration with TAMUK. And what that is TAMUK had contacted us, and they have a speech pathology program, and they're doing kind of like their intern hours, and they wanted to come out and, you know, do some speech therapy, you know. And so they said, can we work with you and your life skills children so we can, you know, kind of get our hours? And we said, okay, yes, what does that need to look like? So we said, we want to do some reverse inclusion. So we'll bring in our general ed students into the life skills classroom, and you work with our life skills kids, but then our gen ed kids get to come in and collaborate so that they learn how to work with our life skills kids. And so they really have bought into that, and it's been good for us because we have outside, you know, people coming in, the university, and the collaboration. So that's been really big with us. We also have the service center come out and work with us on collaborating sensory room procedures and working with our new sensory classrooms. Okay, we also implemented a unique news to you curriculum for all of our life skills classrooms. And then the Waterford curriculum is something that we implemented last year. They came back out conducted an evaluation, and then we had a follow-up and implementation for our life skills classrooms.
And Waterford is at what grade levels?
We use it actually pre-K through 12 because many of our children are still functioning on pre-K through 3rd grade level. But the unique curriculum is pre-K through 12, and the teacher can modify that to the developmental level of the student. Okay. Lastly, I wanted to talk to you about the co-teach delivery option program that we've implemented here. Last year we went to visit Judson ISD, and we went to visit their co-teach model that they have. And it's a different model than what we currently have. We have an inclusion model where there's a gen ed and a special ed teacher in the classroom, and we really felt like we needed to try something different. And so we thought we would pilot this, but before we did that, we wanted to go visit another district. And we went, there was about 4 of us that went out there, and we visited 2 schools, and we're very impressed with the program. And so we decided, let's come back, let's implement it, let's talk to Dr. Moreno and get his stamp of approval. And we came back, talked to the service center, they provided training for us, and we've gone through and implemented this. And basically, it's 2 teachers, a gen ed and special ed teacher, and they lesson plan, and they both deliver the instruction. There's about 6 different approaches that they can use, and they, like I said, they deliver the instruction, they progress monitor, they work as a team, they both make instructional decisions, and they share the responsibility and the student accountability. And the purpose is to bring the teachers with their expertise and their background. And like I said, they share that responsibility to meet the needs of the students. And so I just wanted to share a few slides so that you could see what it looks like. This is what co-teach looks like in Robstown ISD, and these are students in this particular approach. It's called station teaching, and they go into different stations. And this is at the high school. And so lastly, in moving forward, I just want to say that the co-teach, the phase 1, we're going to continue getting support from the service center. They're going to be coming out and working with our teachers and basically going into the classrooms and giving them feedback and just providing additional support where they feel that they need, with the approaches, basically like the strategies. Phase 2 will be training some additional teachers this summer so that we can expand on the co-teach. Of course, we're going to continue with the reverse inclusion in collaboration with TAMUC. We're looking, of course, adding San Pedro sensory classroom, Lott speech sensory classroom, so we're expanding 2 more sensory classrooms. Pre-K through 2nd grade, because we don't have any STAR testing at those levels, we do have assessments. For pre-K is going to be the circle assessment, and then K through 2 is the iStation, so that way we can start to acquire data. Upcoming professional development is Show Me the Data, and that's basically for our AU, our students with autism. And then sensory items, make and take, is we're bringing someone in to work with our teachers, for our students with autism, so that they can, we have different students that have sensory issues, and so basically work with them on how to handle our students, or not necessarily handle, but work with them on how to make different items to better serve their needs. And then any baby can, another, and I guess contract person is going to come in with the life skills teachers and help them set up their classroom to be more appropriate to serve our students for their needs. And that's it. Any questions?
I have questions. So I'm sure I'm very confused, but
Okay.
this first slide right here, so 39% of the kids that were tested in 2019 met approaches, or were at approaches, correct? Am I reading this correctly? And then 23 were at meets, and then 11 were at masters on percentages. Shouldn't that total 100%? Why am I missing this? Why am I so confused? No, we test the whole group of people, right, which is at 100%, and then we put the percentages.
So let me explain that a little bit.
Yeah, because the approaches, the meets and the masters are passing standards.
Right.
So the difference between the 39% that you see there, that's the approaches. The difference between that and 100 is the number of students of special ed that are not meeting the approaches standard.
Okay, that are not on here. Got it. Okay, so whatever the percentages, the difference of percentages.
Only
didn't
the
even meet.
approaches, yes.
Did not even meet, or
Right.
below.
Right.
Okay, so when a student is special ed, do they remain on special ed till they graduate? Like, once they're in that category, do they remain on that category?
Not necessarily.
No. So,
No.
so these numbers fluctuate every year, from beginning of the year to the end of the year. Who makes that decision? Is it a parent that comes to the teacher and says, I want to test this student? Because I would also like to see that. I'm very interested to see, is there a law of the requests of what, of a parent request or teacher request? I want to test the student and then see what the outcome is. Do you know where I'm going?
So you want to see the request of, if a parent requests?
Like, I would like to know of the kids that are either the teacher request or parent request be tested, how many of those kids do we test?
Okay.
I would like to see something like that.
Well, and it really just kind of depends if, just because a parent requests the student is to be tested, doesn't mean that the student will be tested.
That's what I would like to see.
Right.
And there's reasons, I'm sure.
Right.
As to why it was decided that that student would not be tested.
Right.
And is that decided by by the student, by the
Well,
teacher maybe?
No, it's not decided by the teacher. I mean, it's decided, several, it's on an individual basis. I mean, yeah.
Do they have to meet a certain criteria?
I mean, you have to, for example, is it educational opportunity? If an education, like an educational opportunity, if the student was out for 30 days of the school year and they are asking for testing for learning disability, how can you determine that they truly have a learning disability if they've missed 30 days of school? I mean, that's just one example, so.
That makes sense. I would like to see.
Sure, so, and also just to clarify, so there are certain criteria, and again, let's just pretend that we have a particular student and the child has shown some areas of concern, kindergarten, first grade. It could be their academics, it could be some of their behaviors, it could be just some certain deficits. But just because I might have a deficit in reading doesn't mean I have a deficit in math. It just varies. But at that point, it could be at that point that based on the data that we have, recommendation to test the child. Now, if the parent refuses, the parent refuses. But a parent can request testing that has to be considered as well. And then that comes to the campus to make that decision as well, to be able to do that. That's part of what you're asking.
Is there an extra cost to that? If a parent, if I was a parent and I said, can I have my child tested?
Not to the.
There's no cost
No,
to the parent.
that's part of what we do.
No.
No.
There's no cost to the parent or the district. I mean. there's
And
no
part of
cost
that's
to the
because we're our
parent.
own diagnosticians as well.
Right.
So we can also meet with just to get a little more clarity on some of the specifics, so we can make sure we get that
Okay.
information. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Conway, we have our list of bills and then our financial report.
October is always a big month with bills. We spent $820,002.23, not including payroll. The only reason October is such a big month is all the staff get back, they do all their purchase orders in September, all the stuff starts coming in, and then of course we have to pay that. So October is always a big month. On page 44 are the financials. We're 2 months into the fiscal year, so we should be at about 16.67%. And there are 5 functions that are over that. So I drilled down into all 5 of those, and mainly it's because, again, of purchase orders. We've ordered a lot of stuff, and according to this, it goes ahead and expenses it out. So those five those five functions will be fine by year end. Page 45 is just a scenario of where are we now compared to last year. We've collected over $2 million more in revenue this year than we did last year. Our expenses were only about $160,000 above last year, so we put in about $1.8 million in the bank, which is a good thing. I hope that trend keeps going for the rest of the year. Any questions on the financials or bills?
Is this where we ask about the amendments? Are we approving amendments here?
That's coming.
Okay, that's not decided.
Item 7. Thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Next item on the agenda is the consent agenda item, 3, action item, approval of minutes. Do I have a motion? Mr. Lopez, for a second. Second by Mr. Ronaldo. Any questions?
I have a question on number 17 and 19. On the budget amendment, 17 and 19? That's right.
The one that you just gave us?
Yes, it was a separate handout.
Okay.
17?
17, is that, am I reading that correctly? That's for mulch?
Yes, it's for fall setting. We have to have so much at the playgrounds to keep the kids safe. It has to be 3 inches.
No, it's gonna be 12 inches. It's for the playgrounds, at the elementaries. It's gonna be 12 inches of, cushion for safety.
And they're all being redone professionally.
Well, that is, because it didn't say playground, so you know what I was thinking? I was thinking of the mulch on the trees. I was like, I haven't seen
I
this.
thought that first too.
Now, that's at 3 of our schools, correct?
Yes, Robert Driscoll, San Pedro, and Long Beach.
But that's why we put it in function 52. Function 52 is safety, and this is a safety item. It's to keep our kids safe on the playground.
And then number 19, did we hire someone?
No, this is, long story short, we did this last year too. We moved a lot of our contractors out of federal programs and special ed into local to get more SHARS money.
Okay.
So we're doing that again this year. We're gonna collect more SHARS money, so we moved all those contractors out into local, and that's how we're paying for them.
Okay.
We get about 56% back with SHARS.
I remember that.
And if
I
we're
was
paid out of
thinking
federal, we don't get that money, so we have to pay them out of local funds. Okay, any other questions?
Those are on
Good
the-
evening, board and Dr. Moreno, and, sorry, I forgot that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous, we go to B action, approval of budget amendments.
Yeah.
Okay, do we have a motion on that on B?
I'll move.
Move on, Mr. Lopez, there a second? Second by Ms. Roldán, any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous? We go to item 8, governance. It just, consider approval that. Discuss board, the approval of board and superintendent board. Just discuss it.
Trustees, I put it down as consideration just in case we had some items, but after reviewing what we have, I really feel that on December 2nd, we're gonna continue with our workshop. Now, what I do want to share with you for discussion only this evening is you see this packet here. This is basically what it includes is all the information that we gathered from our first workshop. And it's very interesting. So if you turn to the second page, this tells a lot about our board. So when you look at it, and I'm going to assume that thing, you see that first graph. And remember, the activity we had was 5 cards. Every board member had 5 cards, and you created a priority from that. But here's a story that this tells. So on CCMR, basically our college, career, military readiness, we had 4 contributions to that, or 4 priorities that fall within that realm. What happened to positive community partnership? It skyrocketed.
Yeah.
Well, what that shows is that for you as a team of 7, and we as a team of 8, your focus a lot as far as your priorities and the legacy that you want to leave is focused around the social emotional component of servicing our children, but also the community itself. I thought it was just extremely interesting when you look at that, because that's all about people. It's about community. It's about bringing it all together. So there's a lot of moving parts when we look at those 18 different priorities. So now, obviously, in those 18, some are going to overlay. Some of those we'll be able to refine quite a bit, and that's why it's so important for us to go to part 2 of this workshop, to really bring it down to a tangible number that we can say, that we can measure. These are 3 initiatives that we're going to focus on this year, or continue to work on, so we can map that out as far as some of the board goals. When you look at it, not that finance is not important, because finance is very important to our board as a whole, but there was 1 leading finance question, 2 leading operation questions, and 2 safety questions or priorities that came up within it. Which again, 2 priorities is about right. We do about 3 priorities a year, what we look at as far as certain initiatives. But I just thought, and if you don't mind, trustees, I'll just show it to the audience. I mean, look how that bar just stands out. That does tell something, tells a nice story about really where the heart or the core of where we are as a team of 7 and team of 8 is really focusing on community partnerships, the social emotional needs of our kids. What are we doing to address their needs as well as our employees as well? So, the CCMR?
No, the first one.
Positive community partnerships. Okay. So I'll be excited to go into our next phase 2 of our board workshop, so we can continue moving forward. And this is for your information as well. Go to page 3. What I did there is, you see, and now this is taking your cards and putting down the words, and some of it I finessed a little bit based on your meaning of what it is, my interpretation. That's why it's important for us to come back. But you see again where the heaviness is on that section 2. And you'll notice at the very end are your initials. And here's another angle to look at for you as individuals in our workshop, is where did you see most of your focus? Like, where did you land the most in your priorities? Because the way I set up that workshop was, you didn't necessarily think about it that way until I categorized it for you. So that really shows who you are and the role that you feel that you play as a trustee within our community and our school district. Okay? So I look forward to that second part of our board workshop. And again, this is just for discussion only for this evening, leading into our board and superintendent goals.
This is on Monday?
December 2nd would be.
That's the Monday after Black Friday, sir. I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm gonna be available.
All right, thanks, sir.
All right.
We go to item number 8, governance, the next item. Oh, we got that one, I'm sorry. What item number 9, business and support.
Okay, trustees, on this next one, as well, on business support, if you'll notice, action item A, what I'm requesting, trustees, at this point is just for discussion only. I'm going to have Leroy come on up. This is one, trustees, that I'm going to request go ahead and pull, but I do want to show you a presentation because I want to build some background knowledge on your part. The reason I want to pull this is because it's set up as a change order, but I want to make sure that we're following the proper protocol as far as our procurement process. On this, I'm going to recommend a couple of things that we can look at. Number one, I can look at, of course, our lowest bidders, but at the same time, we can look at a sealed bid process on this as well. But the main thing here is, again, we would not take action on this item, but I do want to show you what we're talking about to build some context. So a few months back, I want to say about 3 months ago, we started talking about the field house. And one of the things that was brought up about the field house was we noticed that there were some blocks at the very top of the field house that were shifting, and we were also starting to see some cracks in the building itself. So tonight we wanted to give you some visual, because I know that not everybody's had an opportunity to see the building itself, but that way you get a sense of what we're doing and to ensure that we get the right person in to do the work, and also looking at the right pricing as well. So Leroy?
Good evening. This is our CMU block. I don't know if you can see all the cracks there coming down. This is what you call a stair step cracks. This is a sign of the building moving. It's not functioning the right way, and it's a sign of settling, okay? And that's here. This is a horizontal crack. Again, this horizontal, the building's moving. It's a corrugated metal building structure. The interior walls are made out of CMU block. This purlin's right in here. There's supposed to be a gap right in here, which would allow for movement and right in that area. And as you can see, they sealed it all the way up. So any movement of the foundation or winds or pressure, it's gonna push down and just go and crack the brick. Okay, here on top, see, that's what they needed to do. That's what needed to be done. And as you can see on this one, they tied it right next to the beam. And the beams are gonna move. It's gonna move. It's a metal, corrugated metal building, and there's the hairline crack right in there. Rogelio, or Janek and Associate, Rogelio came by and he said, we need to remove the top 3 bricks in here, which allow it, and stay away from this area and allow it to move. If it's gonna move, it can move hairlines to 1/4 of an inch, and that's all they need for the bricks to crack. And that needs to be done from 2 to 3 inches away from the beams and the purlins. The next one, this is what you call vertical cracks, going up and down. Again, on this, they made the right seam. You see the gap right in there? That is correct, but through the other side of the wall, they didn't do it, because there's 2 CMU blocks, and that's pushing the wall out, away, so that's where you get that up and down movement. This is the result right there. It's pushing out, and it's a CMU block, and instead of moving, it's starting to push out. And that piece right there is about 6 inches wide, and this is right about where the kids walk through.
So Leroy, is that red that we see right at the top, is that a beam or is that?
That's a beam, yes.
That's a steel beam?
Yes, that's not gonna fall off. It's not gonna fall off.
So again, trustees, assuming nothing, what happens is, again, as it shifts, it moves, but you see how tight all the blocks are on it, naturally it's gonna put pressure on it, and that's what's causing all this in most of the building.
And it's pushing out right there. This next one, as you can see it right there on the urinals, starting to do that. So we would take the units out, take the urinals out, remove those broken blocks, install new seal blocks in there, and regrout them and put it back together again. This is our showers. It's doing that in our showers as well. See, we have to reinforce it, those areas in there with MP1 compound, which is make it even stronger, and come back again and paint it, prime it, and paint it right above the door. See, put in the pressure on the door now. As you can see, the seal right there, the doors don't close anymore. Right in that area. So those 2 bricks right there need to be removed and replaced. So this is what's going on at the field house, and football season's over right now. We got a week coming up in 2 weeks for vacation, and then which most of that work can be done. Remove the 4 blocks on top, put a pony wall, stud it up with sheetrock, and which will allow it to expand and contract, and that'll fix this problem right in here. And if not, we got 2 weeks of Christmas where no kids are around. It's a big project. It's a big project, and we can't have kids around, so that's why it's got to be done over the holidays, or it's got to be done in the summer. And we usually utilize those 2 weeks in Christmas or Thanksgiving. Is there any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I know I brought this to your attention back, I guess in August, so I guess this is the results of it, but my question is it under warranty of some sort? I know the field house is not that old.
It's 07, ma'am. It was built in 07. 07. It's already built.
Time flying.
Yes, ma'am. It was built the same time that the junior high was built.
All right. Just looking at it, you're saying you put a hold on it, or you pulled it, we're gonna get more bids?
Well, what happened here is on this, you notice the change order. The change order was set there because since this particular company is already doing a lot of the work on the roofs, that's why it was set as a change order, because oftentimes that'll happen. If you already have the contractors there, they'll give you the bid, but when we looked at a couple other bids, we're looking at a difference of $15,000 on one. One's a little bit more than that, so it's just like, okay, you know, this is something we really need to look at a little bit closer. So a couple things, trustees, and you know, time is of the essence as far as trying to get it done, take advantage of the holidays. I mean, right now, it doesn't pose an immediate danger, but I'm concerned on the beams on the top, you know, again, it just, you know, continue shifting. You know, I'm afraid if some of that the concrete will fall off or a block or something. I mean, those are things we don't always want to chance. So, you know, I'll throw a couple things on the table. I mean, it's up to you. If you wanted to have an emergency meeting just to address that one piece, we could do something like that. That way we're not waiting too long. And then I can, you know, you can give me the authority at that point up to a certain amount, or we can say, you know, again, gather the bids. According to our policy though, when we look at our policy, anything over $50,000, it's always recommended to look at going through, if we're going through a sealed bid process or competitive bids, then that's gonna take a step. We could do it, or we could have Janak to go through the sealed bid process for us like they did all of our routes. So it's just a couple of options, but obviously we have a meeting on December the 2nd. I can't tell you that we'll have enough time to meet the timeline to take advantage of the Christmas holidays. So if we want to call an emergency meeting, then that would be something that where I can, you know, start moving on this a lot quicker. But it's really, I'm just giving you some things to think about on this.
I personally don't think we should go to Jeanette. Because I think if we go to them, we're gonna pay a consultation fee or something.
Yeah, it's about roughly, give or take about 8%. So that might be something that, yeah, that's the difference of right now, because this particular one is, I think, is 93,000. So roughly it'd have been about $7,500 more. You know, if we go through the process, and then we can go through that process ourselves and the advertising and such.
Average between 75 and 95.
Yeah. The whole job in itself, and what caught my attention, I didn't think it would, I thought it was overpriced at first, but then when I started looking at the detail of the amount of work, I can see why it's starting to, why the 3 bids that we have are up there in that over $75,000 range.
I think we should get more bids.
We should get more bids than get the lowest.
And we should do it. Well, I'm not voting for that, that's my opinion.
Well, then we'll have to call a special emergency.
Because like you said, it's not an emergency, it's important that we get it done, but it's not, nothing's gonna happen to the kids
Structural, but
right now.
it's not like it's gonna fall.
Right.
Immediately.
I think that they're worried about bricks coming out.
Because it's been like this for a long time. If this isn't.
How long has it been?
It's been about 3 years already. We're gonna tackle it in August, but football season started and there were too many kids. And our next opportunity was after football season. Football finished last week, and I know basketball, we're going right into basketball. And we can make arrangements with the coaches where, in that break where maybe the kids can come already dressed to practice and they can leave in that holiday that they're off.
And how long will a project like this take?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Our biggest is taking those big bricks off, where they're gonna be up high and taking them down, and they might, it's construction, they might fall to the other side of the wall where they're at.
I guess we could do it during the street.
That could be gold, because we got 2 solid weeks, again, as long as we find a contractor to do it at that time, but that would be the goal. So, I mean, if y'all wanna call an emergency meeting, just address that particular piece, I mean, it wouldn't take long at all. All right, so that'll be our next step, so, yes, sir. So then at this point, it would be a
There's recommendation that we take no action on the approval of the change order for American USA to Evo. You want to go with or second? Second on the card, any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, will be unanimous.
At this point, I'd like to have Mr. Galvan come on up from Tigrina Galvan, and of course, they're our financial advisors.
Good evening, Board, Superintendent, administration, thank you very much. My name is Adrian Galvan. I work with Tijerina, Galvan and Lawrence. Robert Tijerina wasn't gonna be here. He had a family medical emergency that he had to take care of. He regrets that he couldn't be here, but I'm here in his place to go over the plan of finance for refinancing that's available to the district. If you look at the presentation that I handed out, it's labeled plan of finance, and if you go to page 3, pretty much all the, I believe Robert went over this last week, so this is a recap. But what's available at this time, you've got $5.8 million of existing bonds that are eligible to be refinanced. It's called the refunding. So we can issue refunding bonds to take out $5.8 million, if you look at page 3. And the average coupon, the average interest rate on those bonds right now, what's on your books, is at 4%. And we're able to, with our interest rates that we ran this past week, we could replace it with a 2.347. And that's this week's rate, so there's no guarantee until we actually, decide to move forward and lock in the interest rates. But right now, you would step down the interest rates 1.65 percentage points. And it's similar to your refinance on your house. So when the markets are favorable, when it makes sense, we recommend anything between 3 and 5% percentage of savings to consider doing. If you look on this page in the blue shaded box at the bottom left, you're at 11% savings as a percentage of the bonds to be refunded. You could save $641,000. So you put that at the top, and you divide it by the bonds to be refunded. So $641,000 divided by $5.8 million gets you a percentage of 11%. And like I said, the floor, the minimum we start recommending is 3 to 5%. So this refund is way above the minimum threshold. Anything over 10% it's a good deal. It's something to really consider. Interest rates, Ms. Conway's been tracking interest rates for the district, and we've been showing this analysis over the last few months. Rates have dropped. Since the beginning of the year, it's been a big drop in the interest rates, and the question is, do I wait a little bit more? Is it gonna drop more? Do I take the savings now? It's the same thing we do with our mortgages, or whenever you're gonna buy a car. There's more pressure for interest rates to go up than to go down. If you look at interest rates historically, rates have been dropping, and there's a little movement up and down. The Fed has been dropping their interest rates, and that's built into the rates right now. We're at pretty much historical lows. So if you're a gambling person, the chance that it goes up versus down, if you look historically, we're pretty much at the lowest rates that you can get. As your financial advisor, our recommendation is to start the process, move forward to lock in these interest rates. Again, because it's above the 3 to 5 minimum threshold, and that we're at historical rates. If you look at page 3, there's a column called prior debt service on the right, the second side of the sheet. That's the debt that would come off of your books, and it would be replaced by refunding debt service, the next column. And what's shaded there in gray, that's what your debt service would step down, and it's about $50,000 to $25,000 depending on the years. If you take an average, it's about $38,000 a year between 2021 and 2040. And so that's a summary of the refunding. The bond issues are a 2010 new money and a 2010 refunding issue. And the next page 4, this shows the actual maturities of the 2010 new money and refunding. You've got bonds 21 through 40, 21 through 27, all at 4%. The current rates, that would be the replacement rate if we were to lock the deal in this week. And the shaded part tells you how much it's stepping down. So it changes depending on what year you're in, but it's from 2.6 at the beginning to a 1.7. The next page, page 5, if you decide to move forward with this, we put together a timetable of events to get you from, if you decide to give us approval, we'll start the process of working with the working group. Tomorrow will be the first step, is submit the PSF application. The state provides insurance, gives you a AAA rating from the state at just the cost of the application, $1,500. That's step 1. We would start tomorrow. This schedule has us pricing the deal in, middle of January. And I guess a question before you ask is, why aren't we doing this in December? Is there a way to rush this, to get this done? We, as financial advisors, we can get it there. It's the rating agencies that we're concerned about, them having the underlying rating in time. And the last 2 months, the last 2 weeks of December, pretty much the bond market shuts down. The buyers, the people that would market the bonds, they're gone. So we're kind of in that tight window of, it would probably take us 3 weeks, 4 weeks to get the underlying rating in place, and that would put us right in the middle of mid-December. So at that point, it makes sense, say, let's just wait, let's get past the holidays in January and price it in January. So that's what we're representing here in this schedule, pricing January the 14th. At that time, we would lock in the interest rates. What's on the agenda today is parameters approval, where you delegate, I believe, the superintendent to, on behalf of the board, on the date when we price the deal, to execute the documents and to lock in the savings at that time, as long as they're hitting the parameter levels that we've set forth. So that's what's on page 5. Page 6, this is a working group. I've got a couple of blanks at the bottom. I'll walk through that. Thank you for letting us be your financial advisors. Again, the TGO Financial Consulting as financial advisors, bond counsel, McCall Parkers, you've used historically in the past. I believe they did the 2010 deals, so they've got some history with the paying agent, which is the one that sends the invoices every 6 months. That's the Bank of New York Mellon. It was the same paying agent that you had in 2010. It makes sense to keep the same one when you do a refinance. And on underwriters, Robert spoke with Ms. Conway. Underwriters have been sending, so we're financial advisors. There's 2 roles. Your consultant that gives you the advice and walks you through the process, and then the underwriters, the people that on the day of pricing would sell your bonds. And the way an underwriter shows interest to want to work with the school district is to show ideas. And there's 2 firms, Oppenheimer, RPC, that have sent ideas. They've sent this same refunding to the district and to us. And I believe Robert, I think he said he spoke with you and said that you were in agreement on these 2 underwriters. So Oppenheimer and RBC are 2 underwriters that do a lot of work here in Texas, and we feel comfortable that they would do a good job pricing your bonds, helping you lock in the lowest interest rates, and they have shown interest to the district by providing the same refunding analysis that we have provided you. And lastly on that, there's Underwriters Council. The underwriters need an attorney on their end, and to review the documents. You have your bond counsel represents the school district, and usually the underwriter picks their underwriters council, so that's why that's not filled in. So if you decide to go with the team that we suggest, the next step is we would ask Oppenheimer, who their preference would be for underwriters council. So that's in a nutshell what we're presenting here. And like I said, it's our recommendation to move forward, and we'll move as fast as possible on the financial advisor side. And if there's a way to get the rating agencies to step up and keep that same pace, then we'll provide updates to staff and see if we can do something in December. That would be our preference. But there's only so much that we can do to push, because everybody's doing the same thing on these. The rating agencies are all being pushed at the same time. We can try to cash in our favors and see what happens there. Any questions on the presentation or the plan?
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So when do we lock in the rate? What happens if we approve it today, and then by the time we lock in the rate in January, did the rates have changed?
Well, that's the chance we take then.
So what happens if we approve it now, and then at that time they go up?
Oh, if it's out of the market, if the deal doesn't work, we won't do it.
Okay.
We're gonna move
So
forward
even
with
though
the
we
steps.
If we approve it today and it flips
If it
directions,
flips-
then it's not gonna happen.
So
we don't need to approve that first before they stop action?
no, the parameters approval is set with, okay, the superintendent's authorized to execute this refunding if it hits certain parameters. I believe the minimum we've set is 7 or 8%. Right now it's at 11%. So if it drops below that number, there's no deal.
Okay.
And we do all the work, happily do the work, because that's what your advisors do, and if it doesn't work, it sits on a shelf, and there's no cost to you, and if the market comes back, 3, 4, 5 months later, then we do it at that time. Hopefully rates come down a little bit more, and when we give you an update in January, it's even better than this. That's what we hope happens. And just to give you there's this, I'm a big numbers nerd. I've been doing this for 25 years. There's a thing they call the January effect. For some reason, more years than not, interest rates tend to come down in January because it's you're 1 year closer. What used to be a 2-year loan, now it's a 1-year loan. So there's a natural step down in January that happens anyway. So we're banking that the January effect that usually kicks in for you, and it's going to help us for funding. All things. The rates have been probably at this level. They've been really good starting, I would guess, March, April, and it just keeps coming down. And it's like no one knew this was going to happen this year. And it's usually when the market's rallying, when you see the stock market up, usually, it's usually our market. There has to be bad news out there. There has to be a recession. The stock market's crashing. So we're in a weird zone. We're in a weird zone, but if that weird zone is a benefit for the district and we're able to get the savings, we're gonna take advantage of that on your behalf.
And who hires the underwriter? We or you guys? We do, or you guys do the underwriter?
We're proposing that on their working group team. We're proposing Oppenheimer and RBC. If you say yes to move forward and yes to the working group, then we'll call them tomorrow and say, let them know that they're on board and they'll be part of the group, and we'll.
Just to clarify, we use both of them or just one of them?
So there's a senior and there's a co-manager. So that both of them would work together, and they keep each other, in check, because they look at, both of them are providing their indications on where we should go to market. So we suggest you go with 2.
So what
But
percentage do we pay?
does that come out of do we pay that?
What percentage?
That's
do we pay
paid,
them?
so all the costs, that's a very good question. All the savings, everything I've shown you is net of costs. So you won't receive a bill, underwriter here, paying agent here. All those costs are built into the financing. And if you look, when I showed you the page, old debt and new debt, that new debt includes the cost of issuance and the underwriters being paid. Same as when you do your refinance.
So at the end, we are paying.
You're paying because you have to borrow a little bit more to get the financing done, and it's in the interest and the cost. Remember, I showed you a column, page 3.
I do. I'm just, usually we get quotes and we get,
No, we'll give you
the recommendation.
We will give you an itemized list of all the costs. All the costs will be fully disclosed, line item by line item. Our job is to make sure the underwriters are charging market rates, that they're not charging anything but what the market allows. And our job is to make sure their interest rates that they offer you are market interest rates and nothing off that. So our job is to make sure all the costs are lined up. And we'll provide you a full accounting of all the costs and all the details, even up before the deal. We'll interact with your finance director.
And y'all's fees as well.
Yes, your financial advisor, bond counsel, we gotta pay the AG's fees, the official statement. All the fees will be itemized, just like they've been historically on previous deals. There's nothing different than what's been done before.
We've done this before,
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
not the first time.
Yes.
We've done this
But I don't
before.
remember ever having an
We
underwriter.
rehired, yeah.
I know that, but I don't remember us.
Well, that's probably because we weren't told. I'm sure that they've used to. But, it's their hidden cost.
But our job is, there's nothing hidden. Our job is to make sure the underwriters.
It's intuitive, but we've never asked, I guess.
Yes, that's it. We will give you a full accounting of all the costs, of the cost of issuance and the underwriters and the interest rates. All those costs will be transparent and shown and provided to you.
It is pretty standard.
Any other questions? Thank you. Again, Robert wanted to be here so bad, and I had to talk Dad out of it. His dad had to go to the hospital. Like, Robert, we're gonna be okay this one meeting. But he sends his wishes, and I just wanted to just convey that message to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Jim, recommendation, sir?
At this point, we'd like to discuss and consider the approval to discuss and approve an order authorizing the issuance of Robstown Independent School District Unlimited Tax Refunding Bonds, Series 2020, approving and authorizing the execution of an escrow agreement, a paying agent registrar agreement, a purchase contract, and other instruments and procedures related thereto, delegating authority to the President of the Board of Trustees and/or the Superintendent to select outstanding bonds to be refunded and approve all final terms of the bonds, approving an official statement, and calling certain bonds for redemption.
There's recommendation from staff that we approve, item B is discussed by the superintendent. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Lopez. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Garza. Are there any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
We go to item 10, instructions, sir. Action item.
Yes. Ms. Silva? At this point, trustees, we're asking to discuss and consider approval of maximum class size exceptions waiver.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Dr. Moreno. We bring forth to you, another class size exemption waiver. And this evening, we are requesting a waiver, for Lox Beach Elementary in a first grade classroom that has reached 23 students. And we also need an additional waiver at Ortiz Intermediate in the fourth grade classroom.
So trustees, we ask that you consider approval of the maximum class size exception waiver.
There's recommendation from staff that we approve the maximum class size exception waiver presented by Ms. Silva. Is there a motion? Moved by Mr. Lopez. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Roldan. Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous? Go to B, action item, sir.
Trustees, at this point, we'd like to discuss and consider approval of modified schedule state assessment testing days waiver. Ms. Silva?
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we've brought this type of waiver to the board before, every year. And this waiver allows the district to modify the schedule of classes for students who are not being tested during the state assessment testing period. Therefore, it reduces the interruptions during the testing period. So the students who are not being tested must still meet the maximum 2 to 4 hour requirement for funding purposes, though. But this would allow us to have like a late arrival for those students who are not tested. And it really comes into play at the secondary level, either at the junior high or at the high school.
And People's Choice Award goes to Kevin Hart.
So trustees, we ask you to consider approval of the modified schedule state assessment testing days waiver.
There's recommendation from staff that we approve the modified schedule state assessment testing days waiver. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Lopez. Is there a second?
A second.
Second by Ms. Garza. Any questions?
How do we let the parents know? I'm sorry.
We notify parents through Skyward. Yes, ma'am. Ahead of time, with plenty of time to let them know that that's going to take place.
Any other questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous? We go to item 11, probation. This one I'd like to go to executive session. Section 551.074, Texas Law Number 4. Do I have a motion? If not, all those in favor say aye. All those opposed? Unanimous? It's now exactly 7:30 p.m. Everyone in the right side. Move by Mr. Lopez, is there a second?
Second.
Ms. Garza, any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Unanimous? It is now 8:03 p.m. We go to open session. Action item, sir.
Trustees, we're asking to discuss and consider approval of resignations, appointments, and terminations as discussed.
Recommendation from staff that we approve the resignation, the appointments, and the termination as discussed in executive session. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Lopez. Any questions? Second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Garza. Any questions? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Unanimous? 13, adjournment. May I hear a motion?